What's up, guys? Hope everybody's doing well and had a nice, relaxing spring break. Let's jump right back into it. So we've got number 3 here from 2018, and our task is to create the entire code word checker class, and it's going to implement this interface. Now, before we got quarantined, one of the last things that we did discuss was extending another class, inheritance. Now that is not exactly going to be covered on the AP test, but there may be a question that asks you to basically write a complete class. I'm not sure. I know the first question is going to be all about arrays and array lists. That second question is sort of up for grabs. I don't know what they're going to throw at you, but designing an entire class top to bottom is definitely a great question that will get you to where they can test you on basically everything. Now, it won't involve extending other classes because they're not allowed to cover inheritance, and it definitely won't cover interfaces. However, it's basically the same thing. You should still be okay with this. Interfaces we did not cover because that was taken out of the curriculum starting this year, but they're basically the same as parent classes, basically. I know we discussed this a long time ago. I'm sure you've all deleted this from your memory, but you should still be able to accomplish this with one minor tweak, I think. So, just to run through this here, we have a string checker interface, which is different than a class. It's just an interface. If you do remember my little spiel on it a while back, an interface just basically has like a list of methods that you have to code if you're going to implement this class. So there's no actual code in the string checker interface because it's not a class. It's just an interface. So it's basically just an object that we're allowed to make our objects act like, and we have to promise that we will implement all of the methods inside of the interface. This just has the one in it. An isValid method that sends a string in, returns a boolean, and then just returns true or false if the string that we sent in is a valid whatever, according to whatever the heck we decide the rules are. So we have a code word checker class that is an implementation of a string checker object. Let's see, a code word checker object can be constructed either using 3 parameters or using a single parameter. If you send in 3 parameters, it's going to be 2 ints and a string, which identify the minimum and the maximum lengths for your password. And the string that gets sent in is a string that's not allowed to be in your password. Think about it like a normal password. I know at least Cherokee's rules don't allow you to have your own name in your password. It's amazing how many kids try to do that. You are not allowed to put your own name in your password. So our password checker makes sure that your name is not in there. Makes sure a whole bunch of rules are followed. That it's a min, it's at least a certain number of characters, it has a capital letter and a lowercase letter, and it doesn't include your name, and a whole bunch of whatever other rules are implemented. Anyway, the other, if I can find it, can also be, the other constructor can just be a single parameter, where it includes the string that you're not allowed to have in your password. And it just defaults the min to 6 and the max to 20, and that's that. So you're going to need 2 constructors. And then it gives you some examples of how the objects work and whether the isValid method returns true or false. So this first code word checker, basically states our 3 rules are: the code word has to be at least 5 letters long, no longer than 8, and it can't have a money symbol in it. So this one's good because it's the right length and it doesn't have the money symbol. This one's no good. It's the right length, but we don't want this dollar symbol to be in there. Code is no good because it's not long enough, and happy code is no good because it's too long. Here's another example of a code word checker. It's just getting passed in a single parameter, so that means that it has to be at least 6 but no longer than 20 characters, and it can't have PASS anywhere in the password. So my pass, that's good. It has a PASS, but it's not exactly that one. Capitalization does matter. So that's a big hint here. Let's see, this one's no good because it does have the actual little p, little a, little s, little s. This one's no good. This is no good because it's not long enough. It was long enough up here, but the default in this code word checker means your min has to be 6, not 5 like it was back on this one. So this one's not long enough. And this one is way too long, so, well, maybe not way too long. It's got more than 20 characters, so that one's no good. Okay, so we have to just code the entire class. That's easy enough. Here is what I did. Okay, your first point is for your header for the entire class. Public class, code word checker. Now, give yourself a point if you have that much. Or if you used extends string checker. Now, technically, the code is not extends because extends is for when you are inheriting everything from a parent class. When you're extending a class, you use extends. The key word here is implements because you don't extend an interface, you implement an interface. Something I can't fault you for because it's not in the curriculum. It won't be covered on the AP test. And yeah, I've never covered it with you. We did talk about inheritance, but we didn't talk a whole lot about implementation and interfaces. So if you have public class code word checker, you're good. Give yourself a point. If you have extends string checker, cool, you're ahead of the game. If you have implements string checker, you probably Googled something. Let's see. So give yourself a point if you have any valid header here. Another point for any and all private instance fields that you may require for this object. I can only think of needing 3, a min, a max that are both integers, and a string that I called no because you're not allowed to have it in your password. So if you have these 3 private instance fields, I can't imagine you have any more, but if you have at least those 3, you're in good shape. 2 integers and a string. And they have to be private. Please make sure that they are private. If you made them public, sorry, don't give yourself the point. 3 private instance fields and you're good. Now we have 2 constructors. Give yourself 1 point if you just actually have 2 constructors with the correct headers. This one is public code word checker, and we send in 1 string, the thing that we're not allowed to have in our password. This other one is a public code word checker with 2 ints and a string for your min, your max, and the string that you're not allowed to have in your password. So 1 point if you have 2 constructors, both with the correct headers, both public, no void, no return type of any kind, and both with the correct number of parameters. One that has a single string and one that has 2 ints and a string. Give yourself 2 more points if you initialized all of your instance fields correctly. So for this one, min should be set to 6, max set to 20, and whatever your string, your no string is set to, whatever's passed in. For this one, set min and max equal to whatever 2 numbers are passed in. I call them low and high. Try not to use min and max over again. You're gonna confuse things. And this string s gets passed in. That's our no string. Okay, so 1 point for actually having 2 constructors, both set up correctly, and 2 more points for initializing all of your instance fields in each of the constructors. Now your, what is that, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 4. So we've got 4 more points available here for the only method that we're responsible for coding. The Boolean is valid method. So if I just pop back to the, wrong one. According to the interface that we're implementing here, the only method that we have to code up is this one, the isValid method. And we read through all of the examples and the rules, so we should know how this is going to go. It has to be public, and just like the interface tells us we have to do it, it has to be called is valid. It has to return a Boolean, and it expects a string to be sent in. It doesn't matter if you call it str, as long as a string parameter is sent in, it's called is valid, it's going to send back a Boolean, and you make it public. If you have all of that whole header, give yourself a point. Now, you could definitely code this up a dozen different ways, but you're going to get one more point if you correctly, if you make sure that your password is within min to max lengths. You might do this in two different if statements. I just put it all in one. I could have actually done this in one single return line, but I tried to make it a little bit more explicit. So check the string length against the minimum string length or password length, and check your sent in string length against the maximum password length. So as long as this string length, as long as you're in your code checking that this string length is somehow in between min and max inclusive, give yourself a point. I trust that you can, if it looks different than this, I trust that you can tell if it works or not. Another point for making sure you check, this is just checking to see if no is somewhere contained in the string. So 1 point for checking to make sure your string is your password is the right length, and 1 point for checking to make sure that no is not in your string, or checking that it is in your string, okay? Then the fourth and final point are for correctly returning either true or false. So the way I have mine designed, I am checking the length, and I am checking to make sure no isn't there, or that it is there, I suppose. And if any of those are true, then I return false, because either it was too short, or it was too long, or I contained no. In any of those cases, return false. Again, you could have these in 3 separate if statements. As long as each one of them returns false, you're golden. It's not like you can do the converse where you check to make sure that it is long enough and return true, or you check to make sure that it is shorter than max so you can return true, or you check to see that it doesn't contain no, then you return true. You got to make sure all 3 rules apply. So if you do have 3 separate if statements, they should all be checking to see if you should be returning false. And then your default at the end would be 1 return true statement, just like this is set up, because if you're returning true at the end, it means all the other conditions must have passed. If you have any questions about how you set yours up, if you think it does work, or if you're not sure if it works, just shoot me a message and I can check whatever you put on Google Classroom, and I'll let you know what I think. So there you go. Those are your 9 points. Grade your work and go over to Google Classroom, leave a comment on your work. Some of you are leaving a comment on the actual assignment, and you don't need to do that if you don't want everybody to know what you're scoring. You can just put a private comment on your assignment, and we can have a conversation there about stuff. But yeah, please grade your work and go leave a comment on Classroom, okay? If you have any other questions, shoot them my way. I'm here for you. You guys have a nice day.